So Jimmy Kimmel's show, Jimmy Kimmel Live, has been suspended indefinitely after backlash regarding his comments on Charlie Kirk. And I gotta say, guys, I do not know how I feel about this. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Guys, before we get into today's episode, please like and subscribe. Today we're going to be talking about Jimmy Kimmel. So here's the news. ABC polls Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely after Nexstar backlash to host Charlie Kirk comments. And we're going to get straight into the Charlie Kirk comments that brought about all this criticism and all this backlash. Let's hear what he had to say.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Okay, there you go. Those are the comments in question. So I guess he's trying to put forward this narrative that the shooter of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, was in fact a MAGA conservative. Now, this sort of spin, I guess, on the story comes from the idea that because Tyler Robinson grew up in a conservative Christian household, that he must be a MAGA conservative. Now, I don't know whether or not Jimmy Kimmel is just outright lying at this point when saying this, because he would have had information, privy to him at the time, where he would have known that this person was a leftist who in fact had a transgender boyfriend who said that Charlie Kirk was, quote, full of hate, among other things about how disgusted he was by Charlie Kirk's rhetoric. Jimmy Kimmel would have had all of that information readily available to him, yet decided to go on his show and do this sort of MAGA conservative spin on it. Now, some are arguing that this was a joke, as Jimmy Kimmel Live is meant to be a comedy show. First time I'm hearing of that, I guess. It doesn't seem like a joke to me. It seems like he was outright trying to insinuate that Tyler Robinson was a MAGA conservative. Now, does this warrant him being suspended indefinitely on ABC? I'm not sure. And we're going to get into the back and forth here. And it's confusing, okay? You got to know what the FCC is. You got to know what the regulations are. You got to know about all these company mergers and people who are trying to buy different TV shows and put together affiliates and yada, yada, yada. I do not have a crash course to give you in television regulations, television mergers, and the legalities and regulations behind all of this. I will be honest with you. I'm learning a lot of this just firsthand as I am reading through this. But let's get into the response to Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. We'll talk about who may have influenced this suspension, and then we'll decide how we feel about it, I guess, or maybe we'll land in the I don't know space. Now, here it's written for Rolling Stone. In the hours leading up to the decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel, two sources familiar with the matter say senior executives at ABC, its owner Disney, and affiliates convened emergency meetings to figure out how to minimize the damage. Multiple execs felt that Kimmel had not actually said anything over the line, the two sources say, but the threat of Trump administration retaliation loomed. Okay, so here's the thing. Do I think there's anything really wrong with what Jimmy Kimmel said? Absolutely. It seems like he's trying to perpetuate a lie. And I guess there is some sort of FCC regulation that he could have broken in doing that, but it's just on the line there for me. I really don't know. At first hand, I was thinking this seems a little bit extreme, especially if there's some sort of government intervention in this that is causing him to be suspended. But if this is just the sort of public outcry, the public backlash towards his comments, and affiliates are naturally wanting to leave the Jimmy Kimmel Live show because of what he said, then that's a totally different story. Now, here are some other updates. It says Jimmy Kimmel Live is going to be replaced Friday by a Charlie Kirk tribute special on Sinclair's ABC affiliate station. Now, Sinclair is its own, I guess, conglomerate that has all these TV show channels that would be airing Jimmy Kimmel Live, and they will now be airing this tribute instead, which sort of speaks to maybe their political affiliation a bit, but it also speaks to the idea that there could be real affiliates at ABC who are just genuinely upset about what Jimmy Kimmel said and about the lies that he was perpetuating on his show when he said or insinuated that the shooter, Tyler Robinson, was a MAGA conservative. Here's another source out of The Hollywood Reporter that says, quote, a source tells The Hollywood Reporter, Kimmel was prepared to address the backlash on Wednesday night's show. He planned to explain what he said and demonstrate how it was taken out of context. Which, out of context? How exactly was it taken out of context? We, in fact, know the direct context in which you said what you said, and there's only like one way it could be interpreted. Nonetheless, let's keep reading. When asked by The Hollywood Reporter, the source said that Kimmel was not planning on apologizing. He felt what he said did not require an apology. So there's so many layers to this. Maybe a lot of these affiliate stations and these different corporations that are airing Jimmy Kimmel Live came forward and demanded some sort of accountability, some sort of apology in the wake of what he said, and he chose not to do that. So that could also be a factor in his suspension. We really don't know. And there is many a take and reaction to this whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. It seems as though most liberals and leftists are arguing that this is a free speech issue, that this is censorship, that this is authoritarianism, him being taken off air. On the conservative end of the spectrum, I'm seeing most people sort of agree with Jimmy Kimmel being suspended indefinitely. However, I have seen a few that are arguing that if the government has intervened in this, and if they are somewhat responsible for Jimmy Kimmel being taken off the air, then there is an issue, and we probably shouldn't have gone this far. Let's get a few clips that are demonstrating these reactions. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. This one is Scott Jennings, okay?
You use the phrase propaganda, Professor, and I just have to ask you, what do you consider what Jimmy Kimmel was doing every night, or what Stephen Colbert was doing by having on only Democratic guests? Jimmy Kimmel Monday night flat lied about the shooter. Back in the spring, he egged his audience on in cheering on the violence against and wanting, kind of wishing, I think, the downfall of a publicly traded company, Tesla. Do you consider that to be propaganda? Is it good for a business?
Do you consider that to be free speech, Scott?
You use the phrase propaganda.
I'm asking you. You used the words free speech before. Do you consider that free speech?
I consider it to be speech, and he's obviously free to say it.
Will you defend that speech in this country that will defend to the death the speech of others? Will you defend Jimmy Kimmel's speech?
Do I defend Jimmy Kimmel going on television and saying that a shooter from the left?
You defend his right to do so.
He has a right to do so, but he does not have a right to have a television show where he lies his ass off to the American people and attacks half this country on a nightly basis.
Whoa. It seems like, of course, most of what Jimmy Kimmel has said is protected under free speech, but does that free speech also dictate that you have a television show that is safeguarded from backlash, criticism, and the pulling out of affiliates who don't want to be affiliated with your show anymore? This is the issue. If we are just dealing with the natural backlash and the natural reaction to what Jimmy Kimmel said, and that natural reaction has dictated that he be suspended indefinitely, that's one thing, and that's okay. Now, if the government has sort of put its thumb down on the scale and made sure that Jimmy Kimmel has been suspended indefinitely, we have a different problem. And if we are dealing with the latter, that's not something that I am okay with. Now we're going to get into a leftist liberal argument. Here's Chris Hayes and Jen Psaki.
The news about Jimmy Kimmel, I think, is a pretty watershed moment. I think we all need to be talking about. We actually, and it's not just a media story. I know you agree with me on this. It's not just a media story. It's a democracy story. It's a freedom of speech story. It's so many things. And I've been thinking a lot today about how I lived through years of answering questions from a lot of these network journalists, people who ask tough questions. Sometimes I was pissed off at them. That's part of what we do. And this is threatening that.
Are we calling Jimmy Kimmel a journalist? You know what the weird thing is, like, I struggle to even talk about this because what influence does Jimmy Kimmel have? I've never once in my life heard an individual be like, you know what I saw on Jimmy Kimmel last night that really changed my perspective. Never in my life have I heard that. In fact, I've watched more Jimmy Kimmel right now in preparation for this video than I would ever want to watch in my entire existence, my entire lifetime. And I feel like the same can be said for many of you who are now going to be like looking at this news and covering it. Jimmy Kimmel has little to no influence. So if the government is actually hopping in here and, you know, influencing this and making sure that he gets suspended, you've chosen, like, first of all, a very strange person to do this to, and it's actually making him more influential, in my opinion, than he ever was. So I hope that there is not that factor of them coming in and tipping the scale on this. I hope this is just natural backlash, because Jimmy Kimmel deserves that natural backlash and has somehow safeguarded himself from it from so long. I want to show you a clip. This is just an old Jimmy Kimmel clip. I'm going to go on a little tangent here of him talking about COVID deaths and who deserves to die when it comes to COVID.
Hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Honestly, I don't know why it took this long for all these different companies to start pulling their support from Jimmy Kimmel. He's been just peddling bullshit for so long that I'm amazed he's only being suspended now, okay? And I hope that this is just the natural occurrence and the natural response to what he said. Because, my goodness, has Jimmy Kimmel done anything of value for late night television in the last decade? I don't think so. But here are some clips from the FCC Commissioner, Brendan Carr, talking about this Jimmy Kimmel situation. Now, some of these comments give me pause because it does seem like something may be afoot here, like somebody is using their influence and their power to sort of make sure this takes place in Jimmy Kimmel's career.
No, look, again, broadcast TV is different. We're on a cable show right now. You don't have an FCC license. You don't have an obligation to serve the public interest. Podcasts don't either. Stand-up comedians, whether they're on lots of forms of communications, don't, and Kimmel is free to do that. But if you have a broadcast TV license, that means that you have something that very few people have, and you're excluding other people from having access to that valuable public resource, and it comes with an obligation to serve the public interest. And again, over the years, there's been a rule in place at the FCC that local TV stations get to preempt programming that they don't think meets the needs of their communities. But recently, these national programmers, ABC, Disney, Comcast, NBC, they've been exercising outsized control and power over those local TV stations, and there's been no pushback. And this is a very significant moment because local broadcasters are now pushing back on national programmers for the first time that I can think of in modern history. And that's one of the things we want at the FCC. We want to empower local broadcasters that have the public interest obligation to push back on national programmers so that people have more choice.
So you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like he's saying, wasn't me. We're just empowering local programmers to preempt, different information and different media that is not within the vein of public interest. That's just what we're empowering people to do. But then he's appeared on the Benny Johnson show to discuss his work at the FCC and discuss this situation, which seems like an interesting choice. And then you have Benny Johnson's wife, who posted this on Twitter. Okay, she posted a screenshot of the Variety article that is announcing Jimmy Kimmel's indefinite suspension. And she says, "My husband, Benny Johnson, made this happen. Fuck around, find out." Huh? What do you mean your husband made this happen? What exactly? Can you please, in a chain down below, let us know exactly what you mean by that? And then Brian Seltzer tweeted out, "I asked FCC Chair Brendan Carr if he had any new comments now that ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel's show, and he sent me this GIF, whatever. And it's Michael Scott and what? Raising the roof, like celebrating, I guess, that they've made it happen. It's open to interpretation, I guess. Guys, that's not good. It's not a good sign. And the thing is, like with what I said before about Jimmy Kimmel, about, in my opinion, his lack of like overall influence in the grand scheme of things, the sort of shitty content that he's already putting out, I feel like he naturally would have played himself out without any intervention from the FCC or any sort of government entity. So why not just wait for that to take place? We already saw it happen with the Stephen Colbert show. So now we're going to look back at both of these situations and think, did these things actually take place naturally, which I argue it would have, or has the government intervened and made them happen faster? And to what end? Because again, it's Jimmy Kimmel, okay? Even like with the whole late night propaganda machine, the Jimmy Fallons, the Seth Meyers, the Jimmy Kimmels, the Stephen Colberts, where was Jimmy Kimmel on that list? He's not high. Super annoying, but not high whatsoever. And his ratings, it seems, were already not great. It seems like a lot of these like affiliates that are associated with the show were already done with him and just waiting for a moment to hop on him and make sure that they could sever that connection. So if the FCC interfered in this, you should have just let it play out. I in no way, shape, or form want to sound like I am defending Jimmy Kimmel, but my goodness, if you're interfering in this stuff, I might damn near have to. And look at the position that you've put me in. Okay, but now we're going to get into some left-leaning hypocrisy, which I love to talk about. It's sad that it exists, but we're going to show you that it exists. Here's Chris Hayes, which we featured earlier.
ABC made the announcement Kimmel would indeed be taken off the air indefinitely. And this is just the latest chapter in Donald Trump's ongoing campaign to crack down on free speech, dominate the media, and essentially render the First Amendment meaningless. So it was for the journeyman cable news host Tucker Carlson, just fired from his third network. He believed he could say anything, no matter how vile, no matter how disgusting, no matter how offensive, no matter how dehumanizing or belittling. And if you act like a sociopath over and over and over and over, you will become unpopular on the national stage. That's just like a basic principle. Over time, probably not going to work out well for you in the long run. Eventually, people will be rightly offended, disgusted by it.
Oh, well, that's kind of awkward. Isn't that really, really interesting that you're saying this now, okay, with this whole Jimmy Kimmel situation, but that was your take on Tucker Carlson. You have the Democrats, their X page, tweeting out, legalize comedy, free Jimmy Kimmel. Be so for real. Legalize comedy. Now, first of all, the whole legalized comedy campaign was like a whole right-wing thing for the longest time. And now the Democrats are tweeting out legalized comedy, free Jimmy Kimmel. And mind you, it's ironic all in itself. It's so hypocritical all in itself. But also go back and watch the Jimmy Kimmel clip and you tell me where you see comedy. Where did you see the joke? Where, in fact, was the joke? Now we have Jimmy Kimmel himself. Let's run a clip of him talking about Tucker Carlson being X'd out of Fox.
Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother Tuckers ever to appear on American television.
There you go. Do you feel bad? Do you feel bad for this man? You know, I'm making an argument about the whole government intervention thing purely based on principle, not on anything to do with Jimmy Kimmel, because after watching these clips, after seeing just the blatant hypocrisy, it does make you want to hop out and go, you know what? Fair is fair, you know, an eye for an eye. Now we're equal. You know, if the government intervened in this, you deserve it. You've been dealing with no consequences for so long, and we've just been putting up with this and the cancel culture and the deplatforming and the censorship and the shadow banning and one after the other. And we should do the very same to you. And you know what? I truly believe it will just happen naturally. And I hope there was no intervention in this to get this to happen to Jimmy Kimmel. Although with those two comments from the wife and the FCC chair, it's looking a little strange. Now, back on the hypocrisy chain, okay? We're going to go through a list of people who got canceled and deplatformed for comments that they made, and the left was not tripping over themselves to defend them or to say anything like legalize comedy or push for free speech or allow people to say what it is they truly believe, despite whatever job they're in. We should not, infringe upon their rights to share their views. You have Roseanne Barr, you have Gina Carano, you have Megyn Kelly, you got Dave Chappelle, you have Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, you have the app Parler, you have J.K. Rowling, you have Mike Lindell, you have Alex Jones. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I'm sure so many of you will add more in the comments down below. And now I guess you have Jimmy Kimmel. But if the right is going to argue that these are bad things that happen to these individuals, like Roseanne Barr, like Gina Carano, like Parler, like J.K. Rowling, should the same be happening to Jimmy Kimmel? Some would argue, yes, okay, they need repercussions for this. I'd argue, yes, but it naturally should take place. And hopefully, had we had the chance, it naturally would have in this case. And maybe it'll come out that nobody interfered whatsoever. And Jimmy Kimmel just pissed everybody off with his comments about Charlie Kirk, as he did me and so many of you who are watching right now. But I don't think we're going to get the end of that story. So there you have it, guys. I will say I will not be shedding a tear for Jimmy Kimmel. I only do that when I watch his show. I'd like you all to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you think happened here. Again, I had to get a crash course in all of the inner workings of the TV realm and regulations and the legality of it, and I still don't know that I have a full understanding of it. So fill me in on anything I missed in the comments down below. As always, if you disagree with anything I said in this video, duke it out, but just respectfully encourage healthy debate on this channel. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video for you guys, which is every day. And I will see you guys tomorrow if I don't get suspended indefinitely. Bye.